Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is the one that we've all been waiting for. The LUMIRANK Top 150 for the first half of 2024 is finally here, and I gotta say, people were not happy about this one. And when are people happy, to be fair? But there was a lot of drama, especially this time around, and we're gonna be talking about all of that good stuff today. Let's get right into it. So we got to start off with the top 150, and we're not going to be covering all of these players because there's just too many of them, but there are a handful that I do want to shout out. The first one is going to be MyPan. Getting top 150 with Zelda is so impressive. I think Zelda is like bottom 5, absolutely terrible character, and MyPan was able to secure a bunch of like super solid wins this tier on like A tier, maybe even some S tier caliber players. So big props to MyPan for the amazing season. I'm really curious to see if he can keep it up, and to be honest, I think he can because the player skill on this guy is off the charts, to be honest. I mean, getting top 150 with Zelda, obviously, you have to be pretty good. I also want to give a huge shout out to Kid getting into that top 150. I don't think he was top 150 last year. I think this is his first time being on the LUMIRANK, and he absolutely deserved it. Had that amazing performance at King Kong with that huge upset over Mars, putting me Brawler on the map. I have a lot of faith in this character, and Kid is one of the people that is actually, actualizing it, so big props to him for that. Allows me to push my narrative, which I always appreciate. And the players that I think are going to improve the most on this kind of 150 area going onward, I think Alandis, if he gets the opportunity to travel, is going to improve by a significant margin, probably get into that top 50. Apollo Kage, I think he had a little bit of a rough start to the year, but I do think he is going to have an uptick in that second half. And Lancelot's the final one I want to talk about. I've actually been so impressed by Lancelot. He has been killing it in Europe recently, and unfortunately Europe didn't have a ton of representation this time around. They usually don't, and we'll get to all that drama when we get to that top 20 area where it starts to matter a lot more. But big props to Lancelot. You definitely got to keep your eyes on this guy, and also he's keeping the Crom culture alive. Editing proof block, I realized I gave a shout out to MyPan, but not to YN, who is ranked higher than MyPan. So take everything I said about MyPan and apply it to YN, but 30 placements better. Moving on to the top 100, starting off with Gilhue, who manages to get into the top 100 with solo Kirby. And he only had one event to prove himself this year, at least at the major level, which was Smash Factor, where he beat Oslimos. So suffice to say, he absolutely proved himself. And this is the first time in quite some time that we have a new Mexican player in that kind of top 4. Usually it was always Meister, Leo, Spargo. That was kind of the iconic 3. Then you had Skyju being really dominant there for a period, but didn't have an amazing season. He still got top 100 with Incineroar and made that crazy run at LBM. Like, let's be realistic for a second, he's still incredible, but to his standard, of course, it wasn't as good. But Gilhue absolutely pops up. Huge props to him. Easily the best Kirby player in the world, and I really hope that we get to see him travel to a different part of NA, or just anywhere, honestly, in the second half of the year, because I need to see more Kirby action. Another player that definitely deserves a shout is Tarik. He is just way too low on this list. And again, we'll talk about the Europe problems when we talk about the Europe problems. But I think Tarik is a shoo-in for the top 50. He literally beat Akola at the pre-invitational for Supernova. And I'm aware it's a pre-invitational. I'm aware it doesn't count. But you still beat a player of Akola's caliber that shows a lot of promise. I really hope that we get to see more of Tarik because he's just such a sick player to watch. He's really the only one doing it with Greninja at the top level. Obviously, you have Vanilla also having that incredible run. But I do think there's a pretty significant gap between Vanilla and Tarik. The next player I want to shout out is Lax. He got 69th with Crom. I mean, I can't even think of something more iconic than that. Gachapi also had a pretty incredible year. He's been rising with those Lucario stocks as well. I didn't even know he played Sonic and Ice Powers, but the Lucario is definitely going to be the main value that he's getting there, and I would regard him as the best Lucario player in the world at this point. I know Armadillo is also very good, but Gachapi's just had such a stellar year. And the final player in this area that I want to shout out is going to be Jazzo, because I think Jazzo has been on a massive uptick, specifically in the second half of the season, and I'm really curious to see how he does going into Supernova, because if he continues to improve like this, I could see Jazzo being top 30 by the end of the year. Actually, the last player I want to shout out, though, is Goryoka. This is a man of many talents. He's got the Joker, the Sephiroth, the Mewtwo. Apparently, he has an Aegis that I didn't even know about. He's just been slowly climbing the rankings. I feel like he's been sliding under the radar for a lot of people, but expect him to be top 50 by the next season. So let's get into this top 50, and I'm going to be mainly avoiding just reading out players' placements in tournaments and their best wins because it is on the screen. I'm sure I'll still say it from time to time, but if you do want to check out this article, a link will be down below. I highly recommend that you do so because they have these really cool blurbs that are written about every player. They have fun facts. It's just really well done from the LUMIRANK team. But kicking off this top 50, you're going to have Jackal as our first player, and Jackal's someone who's really hard for me to rank because I don't really view Jackal as like a rank on a tier list. I view Jackal as placements. His best placement is what Jackal is represented by because he's a player with incredible peaks. I'm talking that SmashCon Fall Fest run. I'm talking that run at Crown. We haven't seen it yet in 2024, but I know it's going to come. And then on average, as you can see, he is just an extremely consistent player aside from this 65th at LMBM. I think Jackal can only go up this season because we haven't seen like the big Jackal moment yet. At 49th, you're going to have Yamanakshi. I think this is a player that probably slid under a lot of people's radars because he wasn't farming at the super major events, but he was just going to a lot of A tiers and consistently getting solid placements there, as well as some really good wins. Most notably, he's got that Tama P win, which is obviously going to be huge, as well as impact wins on players like MK Leo and Nail. We saw a lot of Steve players rise in Japan this year. There are a couple more on the list that I'm going to talk about, but I think it was about time that we saw Steves in Japan. They were all a little late aside from Akola, but the renaissance has finally hit. At 48th, you're going to have Kuroponzu, and I don't have a ton to say about this season other than this insane run at Sumabato SV47. It is literally deadlifting his season, but also he deserves it because, you know, he got second there, beating multiple top 20 players. And by multiple, I mean 3 top 20 players in one run. And it's not like his other results are bad. He's got 9th at a major, 13th at a major. He still has a bunch of really solid runs, but this, specifically this run at Sumabato 47 is genuinely incredible. You're going to have Peebnut at 47th, and I'm such a huge Peebnut fan, sorry to gush, but he's really the only one doing it with Mega Man nowadays, and my god, is that Mega Man good. Getting impact wins on players like Mia and Zomba this season, Shutone as well. That little streak of Cirque to CFL to Invitational where he just farmed everyone was so good for his season, and I think he has only to go up. I really have a lot of faith in Peanut. I hope he's able to do well at Supernova, so I get proven right mainly, but also because I like seeing Mega Man succeed. You're going to have Big D at 46th, and somehow, don't look at the 257th, but somehow Big D is one of the most consistent players that we have. He doesn't have a lot of results, so that is definitely a factor, but again, aside from that 257th, the worst is a 13th. He's got 9th at a major, 5th at Gommel with wins on Leo in the Aegis matchup, Siski Light. Like, he's just such an impressive player. Easily the best Ice Climbers player in the world, and I don't know if that's ever going to change. Maybe Sin can take it because that guy is also legit, but moving on to Matsunabe at 45th. I also think Matsunabe is a player that is only going to go up. I honestly just have a lot of faith in all of the Falco players. Masa, Matsunabe, Tilde. I think they are all incredible. And I honestly don't know which the best one is. I mean, off the ranking season, you would definitely give it to Matsunabe just because Tilde and Masa didn't go to as much stuff. And the stuff that Matsunabe went to, he does do extremely well. He's got some really strong wins on players like TG, Ken, Gact as well. He's just an incredible player, and I think he's only going to get better. I know I'm saying that about most players, but spoiler, that's kind of how it works. In 44th, you're going to have Karage. He does manage to surpass Jogabu this year as the best Captain Falcon player in the world. And while a lot of that is Jogabu definitely having a dip in performance, it's also Karage having a massive uptick in performances. As you can see from these top 3 events right here, he's got 1st at a B tier, 2nd at a B plus tier with a bunch of crazy wins, and 3rd place at a major. Falcon is not a good character in my opinion, and I only think Falcon is going to get worse as the game progresses. Maybe he gets a little bit better because people figure out how to do IDJ combos with him, but the benefit of Falcon is that you can play him at a very high tempo, and Karage is like incredibly fast. I mean, he's a zoomer, he's got that quick kid reactions, and it's absolutely paying off for him in the bracket. In 43rd, you're gonna have Umeki, a little bit of a fall off for him compared to last season. It's just these P tier events are killers. 97th, 265th, a 49th. He does have that 9th at Umabora, but these are just gonna have massive impacts on your season. But again, at the A tier events, he has been pretty solid. 4th place here, 13th place here, getting really good results at the B tiers as well. Picks up a couple nice wins, most notably over Yaura and Osimo. Again, it's a little bit of a rough season for Umeki, but he's also like top 50 in the world, so whatever. In 42nd, you're going to have Shirayuki, and this is a player that definitely snuck up on me. It's probably because he just doesn't do great at the P tier events, but he does really well at a lot of these A tiers. Multiple top A tier, even gets 2nd place with an incredible run at Sumabato SB48, and he's doing this with Solo Inkling in 2024. I do not know how he is still making this character work. I just don't know how you're supposed to kill anyone at all, but clearly Shirayuki does. He's doing an extremely good job. I would be surprised if he went up next season genuinely just because of his character, but skill-wise, I think this guy could do anything. He's had some incredible runs before, he's had some incredible runs this season, and he's probably going to keep having incredible runs. At 41st, to wrap up the 40s, you are going to have Alice, and I know that it didn't happen this season, but he does be hurt recently with that secondary Kazuya, and the P tier events for him aren't great aside from this Umabora run, which is likely his best run. He gets a really nice win there on Tama P as well. Collects wins on Reru and Doramigi at that Sumabato event, Sumabato 48 specifically. So I think Alice is someone, just because he started off the season so strong, that you should be looking forward to seeing improve, and it's going to be with the combination of the Kazuya and the Roy. I used to think of Alice as just a Roy player, but again, after you beat her with Kazuya, you definitely earn my respect. In 40th, you're going to have level 1, and I feel like this is a player that doesn't really need introduction. We all saw what he did to Spargo. We all saw what he did to her. We all saw what he did to T at Delta's 8. Just played out of his mind at that event. Also has a really nice run at Sumobato SP49. Now, aside from that, he does have a handful of inconsistencies that are honestly keeping him from being higher than this, which is crazy to say that a Toon Link player, not a young Link, not a normal Link, I wish it was a normal Link, but a Toon Link player is getting top 40 in the current state of the game is pretty remarkable to me. I think he only has up to go because, as I said, a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of really good wins on this guy's belt. At 39th, you're going to have Neo. Now, Neo, I do think, has a really unfortunate season just because a lot of IRL issues kind of got in the way, but the start of his season was like looking to be a top 20, maybe even a top 10 player in the world. That top 8 at Genesis beat Shattuck in the Ditto, as well as getting wins on players like Onin and Zachary. Does pretty good at King Khan, as well as a 9th place at Kulon. Just a rough second half to the season really slowed him down, but I think mental reset, a lot of those issues are hopefully behind him going into the second half of the year. I would expect this guy to be significantly higher. At 38th, you're going to have DeBuzz, and this was a really rough season for DeBuzz. Now, with that in mind, he still has 3rd place at 2 A tiers, and he won a B+ tier event. He has wins on Meister, he has wins on Riddles, Tweak, Mutace, Light. He is still phenomenal. But to the DeBuzz standard, this is the lowest that we have ever seen him, and it's likely going to be because at the super major events, he wasn't able to get into the top 8 this time around, and he just didn't go to a ton of other major events. But of the majors that he went to, he does get 3rd at both of them. He's still an incredible player. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him back in the top 20 next season, but it's tough to be consistent in this game, especially, again, when you aren't doing really good at the most important events. At 37th, you're going to have Lima, and this is a player that I am very confident is going to do significantly better in the second half of the year. I think Lima's going to be like a top 20 player by the end of the year, and he's already got a bunch of solid wins under his belt. He's got 2 Mutace wins, 2 DeBuzz wins, he's got an Osimo win. I don't know when he got that, but he got it. I think it was probably a Invitational or Cirque, as well as a Zombo win. He was also able to win cost, collect a bunch of nice wins there. The only things that are really holding him back are his lack of amazing runs at S+ tiers and P tiers, but he still does manage to get this 9th place at Collision, so it's not like he didn't have any good runs. Again, I think if we just see Lima hit a higher peak next season, he's going to be ranked higher because, like, obviously, but I think the mental shift that will happen for Lima once he hits that peak is going to be like, oh yeah, I can do this again, and then he's just going to time everyone out to victory, and it's going to be awesome. In 36, you're going to have Cola, and this is a player that I've been pretty intrigued by recently, not only because, you know, it's Cola, he's just fun to watch, but he has that Pyramyth secondary, and I just want to see what that Aegis can do. Not that he really needs it, though, because he's got a 1st at CEO, 3rd at Patchwork with a really nice Shattuck win in a pretty tough match. Maybe he did play Aegis in that one, though. I actually don't know. He has a 4th place at Collision, beating Mutace, Light, and Leo, which is super impressive. 5th place at Invitational. It's one of those things where the only things that's really holding a season back is at the most important events, aside from Collision, he doesn't do super well, but also it's like 17th and 25th. Those are his worst placements of the season. If that's even like a 13th or a 17th instead of a 25th and a 13th, he's already a top 30 player. Just very small improvements for Cola need to be made for him to massively rise on the rankings, and it honestly wouldn't be surprised if it happens. This is a player that I am 1000% sure is going to rise the rankings, and that is Raffle, on the condition, of course, that he gets to, you know, go to events. The only time that we saw him travel internationally, at least to America, he ends up getting a 17th at Genesis, where he beats Mia. 33rd at Umabor is not bad as well, especially considering how bad most of the invaders did. He got 3rd place at the only European major of the year. Again, we'll talk about that when we talk about that. I think Raffle will be a top 10 player. Maybe not by the end of this year, but by the end of Smash Ultimate. He is genuinely incredible at this game. That combination of Palutena Samus is so deadly, and he's just the GOAT. What can I say? In 34th, you're going to have Wrath, and like Rathlo, this is another player that I almost guarantee will be going up next season, and I know he's going to have the opportunities because he's in America. Now, Wrath, the only major he went to this year was Patchwork, where he managed to get into that top 4 with a Zombo win, but his other placements are just B tiers. He wins MomoCon, which is great. A huge props to him for winning that one. I feel like people really didn't give him the credit for that. It was a pretty stacked event. He gets 2nd place at DreamHack Dallas. 9th place at Level of Expo is his worst placement. You can see Wrath only went to 4 events this year, and he is in the top 30 almost. That just shows you a good player who's getting consistent results at everything they go to. And if we see Wrath going to more of these major events, he didn't go to any super major events, I wouldn't be surprised if we started seeing him in a lot of those top 8s. You're going to have Syrup in 33rd. It was really only a matter of time before Syrup rose the rankings again. He doesn't drop Ness completely, but the pivot from Ness to Steve is a really big deal. It's just going to take time to make that adjustment. You can see he still gets 13th place at Patchwork, where Steve is banned, by the way, so he's clearly legit. For everyone saying, oh, Steve Carey, blah, 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 no, you're dumb. He's not Steve carried. He's insane in this game. He also got 25th at LMBM with his main banned, and when his main is not banned, he's got 5th at Cirque. He's got 5th at Goblin. Wins on players like Shattuck, Cosmos, Osimo, like one of the best Steves in the entire world, second best Steve in America, and I think he's really the only one that has a shot at Honor. In 32nd, you're going to have Crep Soleil, and this is another example of Europe just not getting as many opportunities as they maybe should. Now, even if Europe did get more opportunities, I don't know if Crep Soleil would have gone significantly higher than this, but next season, he's very likely going to go significantly higher than this. I think it's only a matter of time before he becomes the best player in Europe. It's going to be him or Raffle. I do think that Glutony is going to be surpassed. Look at these results. Second, third, first, second place, 5 Bluto wins, 3 Siski wins, 2 Raffle wins, 2 Gak wins, and a bunch of other solid placements as well. The only major event that he was able to attend this year was Genesis, where he does get his 65th, which is definitely unfortunate, but it is also the thing that qualifies him for the LUMIRANK, which, again, I don't love as a rule. We'll talk about that when we talk about that, but overall, Crep Soleil, insane at this game. It's a little bit twisted and evil that he was the Wario prodigy under Glutony and went to Steve, and now Glutony's playing Snake to beat the Steve, but hey, that's just how the cookie crumbles. Our final player in the 30s is going to be Aka, and not necessarily deadlifting his season, but this Delta run is phenomenal. Wins on players like Yaura, Leo, level 1, getting into that top 8 at a P tier event. Really consistent results at the A tier as well, aside from this 33rd blemish right here. And he's also just got like 17th, 13th. He just doesn't really have low placements. He only has solid placements, and every tournament he's going to, he's just picking up solid wins. Like, look at this. He's got wins on Tama P. He's got wins on Yara, DeBuzz, Leo. He is the best hero player in the world. He does manage to surpass Beast Mode Paul this year. It's going to be difficult for him to continue rising the rankings just because Hero, at the end of the day, is an RNG character. But you know what they say, the better you are, the luckier you are. In 30th, you're going to have Carmelo, and he's been unreal this year. Definitely the biggest Steve Ascension that we've had, and looking at his consistency, you can tell why. 9th at 4 major events, 2 of them being P-tiers, and a 17th at Kagaribi, the biggest event of the year being his worst placement. That is pretty phenomenal. The only thing that's honestly stopping him higher is this lack of top 20 wins, but you got to remember, this is like Carmelo's first season as a super good player. I think the second that he gets into that top 8 at a major, maybe he's done it prior to this year, but let's say the second that he gets it in 2024, it's going to be one of those things where the flip just switches in your brain. The fact that you know you can do it just gives you so much confidence, and then you're able to repeat it over and over and over again. He also has a nasty Aegis secondary, which of course people aren't going to tell you about because he is known for the Steve. You're going to have Riddles at 29th, and this was definitely an unfortunate season for Riddles. As you can probably see from his fun facts, maybe his head wasn't in the right place for Smash, but even with that, he's got a 3rd at Gommel with wins on players like Sonics. Most notably, he beat Sonics, which is crazy. 5th at Battle BC, 4th place at Diamond Dust. He's still easily the best Kazuya player in the world. I don't think that is ever going to change. I just think the way that Riddles plays and the way he understands the game is built for Kazuya. He's just the master of the character, and then he's also the best Terry player in the world, because why not? In 28th, you're going to have Ken, and it is a bit of a drop-off for him this season, but also he, like, really didn't go to anything. Basically, he went to P-tier events, did bad at an A-tier, and did pretty good at a B-tier. 3 9th places at P-tiers just shows insane levels of consistency. Top 8 in the other 2 as well, picking up nice wins on players like T and Glutony, most notably. I think if Ken went to more stuff, he'd probably be ranked higher. It wouldn't shock me if he was ranked higher going into the second half of the year. It's kind of tough to tell, especially when we're getting this late into it, because you can only go up so much more. But Sonic is definitely a character that can do it, and Ken is definitely a man that can pilot it. At 27th, you're going to have Totoguri, and I said it on Twitter, people got mad at me. This is the most impressive low tier placement I have ever seen. And before people say, what about Amsa? What about Skyjay? First of all, Yoshi's not a low tier anymore. Amsa literally made that character not a low tier by himself. And Skyjay, I just think that, like, Banjo is, like, way, way, way worse than Incineroar. But Skyjay is, like, actually a good job. Back to the topic at hand, though. Sorry for getting salty. He has a 5th place at Battle VC, his first time traveling outside of Japan, where he beats the GOAT of NA in MK Leo. And then when the current GOAT of NA, or I guess the GOAT of Mexico, comes to him in Japan, he also beats Spargo, and then he also beats Zamba at, like, this is insane. Every single time you're putting Totoguri against one of our best, America's best, and NA's best, he is just beating them. And he's doing it with Banjo-Kazooie. Like, that doesn't make sense. In 26, you're going to have Yoshidora. Again, a little bit of a drop-off from last season, but it's obviously still incredible. And it's really just these 33rd and 49th that are hurting him. Everything outside of that is, like, effectively perfect. 9th place being the lowest, top 8ing everything else. 3rd place at 2 A+ tiers, picking up a bunch of solid wins on players like Doramigi and Osimo, as well as Snow. I think Yoshidora definitely could improve next season. Again, it's tough to say at this point because could he improve? Yes. Will he improve? I don't know, because other people are also improving past him, but he is easily the best Yoshi player in the world, and I would honestly be shocked if that ever changed. Maybe Fui or like Mei out of nowhere catches up to him. At 25th, you're gonna have to go a moment of silence. All right, back to it. He is going to win King Kong. So he does manage to win a major this year, which is obviously very impressive. And he has 4 wins on Spargo. I don't care if Spargo didn't have the best season. To beat Spargo 4 times is pretty unreal. It's going to, again, come down to some of these P-tier placements definitely hurting the season with his 25th at Genesis, especially with that unranked loss to Titan, as well as his 25th at Kagedibi. But aside from that, he's been very consistent. 2 9th places, top 8ing, literally everything else. I guess Battle of BC also wasn't great. Ended up losing to Ron there in the loser side of the bracket. But I heavily expect MKLeo to return to the top 20 next season. I think he was playing amazing at Warehouse Wars 4, which I know was for the current season, I guess. But also, that just bodes well for me because he won a major or a B-tier in the current season. It's already looking good for Leo. In 24th, you're going to have Meister, who manages to get himself ranked above both Leo and Riddles this season, which is obviously very impressive. No specific reason to point that out. His only kind of bad placements are this 25th at Delta and maybe this 13th at Kagedibi. If you want to argue getting 13th at the biggest tournament of the year is a bad placement. And then he's got 3 top 8s at big events. 9th place at Genesis, just barely missing out. This really nice run at LSI where he gets a bunch of super important wins, specifically over Light and Tweak. I definitely think Meister could improve next season. I think he would have been honestly better this season if he just kind of went to more stuff. But as you can see, he didn't have a ton of events under his belt, but the big event that he does go to, for the most part, he ends up doing extremely well. At 23rd, you're going to have Gacton. This was easily the most surprising placement of the entire just ranking, to be honest, because looking at some, well, maybe not in the top 10 area, we'll get to that, but before the top 10, 129th at Umabara, 33rd at Kageribi, 17th at Delta. At the events that matter most isn't super great, but then I look at his wins, and he's got wins on Yara, and Tamapi, and Shattuck, and Mutes, and MKLeo, and oh my god, this guy's good. He's got 2 Osimo wins as well. I think this is a character that is a lot better on a tier list than they are in practice, and for Gak to be able to make this character work, not consistently in tournament, but to the level that he does in tournament, I think is unbelievable. He also has a 3rd place at Smash Factor. I just didn't even mention that. He has 3rd place at an S+ tier, and I didn't even think to mention my mind because the rest of his stuff is also incredible. In 22nd, you are going to have Gluttony, who is the highest ranked European of the year, and I think this is the time to talk about some of the problems that I had with the LUMIRANK and some of the problems that everyone had with the LUMIRANK. And I want to start this conversation by saying this is in no way the LUMIRANK's fault at all. But if you look at the big events of this year, we had 5 P-tiers this year. 4 of those P-tiers were in Japan. And then we had 4 S+ tiers, and they were all in NA. The other P-tier was also in NA. So obviously that is a huge problem. Europe is only going to manage to get 1 major this time around, which is definitely unfortunate. I would like to add some point multipliers to Europe to make that a little bit more fair. But also for Europeans, number 1, I don't think you guys got shafted that hard on the rankings because it's not like when European players are traveling, they're playing out of their mind. Aside from Raffalo beating Mia at Genesis and Gluttony just being Gluttony, they haven't been doing well internationally. So I don't think that's a super fair thing to say that all these players should be in the top 50 because they're doing well in Europe. And also, Europe, you guys gotta stop complaining. You gotta look at it from the perspective. You are the 3rd best region in Smash Ultimate. Think about Brazil. Think about China. Think about literally all of Asia except for Japan. Think about South America. Think about Australia. It's not that bad. I know it sucks that you're not getting these major events, but at least you're getting like a D tier and a C tier pretty much every single week. There's so many tournaments in Europe. The problem is the region is just so massive that you're not able to get to these super massive events. I do admit that it is a problem, but it's not anyone's fault that's a problem. It just happens that all the talent isn't where you are. Get over it. Except for Tarik, Lugi, and Bloom. I do think that those 3 players definitely have a very real chance of getting top 50 if they had more opportunities, but everyone else, I think it's completely justified. Anyway, no more drama. Back to the ranking. You're going to have Gluto at 22nd, and he did switch his controller halfway through the season, so all things considered, this is still really good, and even without all things considered, he won a major and got 3rd in Mabora, beating Mia, which is unbelievable, as well as picking up high-impact wins on players like Doramigi, players like Snow, Gax. He doesn't do as well in Europe as he typically does because Europe has been getting significantly better, but it's not like he's doing bad in Europe. He's still got a 2nd at Game is Game. He's still got a 4th at King of Filth. He doesn't end up going to King Kong, which is definitely unfortunate. And aside from this Umabora run, his P-tier results are incredible. I do think Gluttony will break into that top 20 by the end of the next season. This one a little bit low for for him, but also it's still pretty solid. He still won a major. Like, you can't complain. And before I forget to mention it, Gluttony joins the list of players that have won a major in all 3 major regions. I like to consider 4 regions because of Mexico, but he's won one in Europe, he's won one in Japan, and he has won one in NA. Massive props to Gluttony for that. That's just such a historical achievement. And our last player that didn't make the cut for that top 20 is going to be on and very close this time around, and you can see why. 3rd at Collision, 4th at Gommel. Those 2 runs are phenomenal, and they also do extremely well at these B tier events and these like C tier events, winning a couple of them. If we just saw more of Onin at majors, I'm pretty confident they would have been in the top 20, but we didn't, so they aren't. I do think they will be next season, though, again, assuming that they go to more. Getting into the top 20, our first player is going to be Zachary. This is someone that I had as an honorable mention, but I think it's completely fair that he is in the top 20. He only went to 4 majors this year, and as you can see, he's still only top 8 Kagadibi, but, you know, look at that run. That's one of the best runs that we've seen so far. Wins on Tama P, Ken, Doramigi, Aka. Like, that is unbelievable. And even at Genesis, where his placement maybe isn't amazing, 13th is still good, he beats Mia. He beats the Buzz. So the events where he isn't placing super high, he's still getting those really high impact wins. And he's still doing it with predominantly Pit. I don't know why. He just loves Pit. He can't help himself. I know the Wolf would be so much better. Please bring back the Wolf. I need it. The Joker would be cool too, but I guess the Pit's still fun to watch. He's just such a spectacle when he's playing this character. He's doing stuff that I've literally never seen before and will probably never see again because nobody's playing Pit like that. At 19th, you're going to have Shiny Mark. And this is a player that people weren't happy about where they ranked. Well, specifically, I think it was Pink Fresh on Twitter. Sorry if it wasn't you, Pink Fresh, and he wasn't happy about that ranking. But I think Shiny Mark is the hardest player, maybe in the entire ranking to rank, because he only has 3 super notable events, and one of them is a 33rd, but the other 2, he wins. He has 2 wins on Sonic. He has a Shattuck win, he has a Leo win, he has Onin win, Meister win. He's just been unbelievably good. Now, I'm okay with the Shiny Mark placement at 19th because in my head, Shiny Mark has been a top 10 player since like mid-2023. That's just kind of how I view him, and now he's just slowly catching up in the rankings on how he's reflected. Yeah, you could say 19th is too low, but also he only went to 3 big events, and I know that he won 2 of them, but again, he went 1 and 2 at one of them. I think it's pretty justified where he was placed, and we all know he's going to be better next season. In 18th place, you're going to have Snow, and this is a prime example of someone being rewarded for just grinding and going to a ton of events. He does have a couple pitfalls because of that. He's got a 33rd alt core. He's got 2 17th places. He has a 13th at the most important event of the year, but he also has a ton of top 8 and amazing wins. He's beaten Mia, Leo, Osimo, Rare. He's beaten Doramigi and T twice. He's beaten Hurt as well, and this Suma Grand Wars run where he ends up getting 2nd place is incredible. He came close to winning a major this year. It was one of the Suma Bathos, I forget which one. He wins it over Karage, and honestly, one of the best sets that I've ever seen in Smash Ultimate. It's kind of sad that most people don't know about that one. I do think that Snow is going to win a major at some point. He's absolutely the best Mario player in the world. Hopefully, Kurama can take that title back, but honestly, Snow's holding on to it pretty tight. It's going to be extremely difficult. In 17th place, you're going to have Mudace, and he gets his first major win this year. Everyone knew it was going to happen after we saw that Genesis run. It really is only a matter of time, and I guess time is up. He wins Patchwork over Zomba, as well as beating players like Tola and Wrath. He gets an amazing run at Cirque as well, beating Shattuck, Zomba, Shootone in a really bad match, in my opinion. He does still have a couple inconsistencies here and there, but it's Mudace. This is what we expect. This is one of the players with the highest ceiling in the entire world, but sometimes his hands, like, literally just fail him. There's not much you can do about that, especially in a high-maintenance character like Peach, where you really do have to be playing perfect, but Mudace is like as close as perfect gets, to be honest. In 16th place, you're going to have T, and I do think that T is higher than he should be this season. He just didn't go to a ton of stuff, and his peak isn't super high. And by that, I mean he got 5th place at the biggest event of the year, as well as 7th place at the biggest NA event of the year. But you know what I mean by that. For players of this caliber, you would expect just kind of more results out of them, as well as more wins in the top 20. The only wins he picks up in the top 20 are 2 wins on Shootone and a win on Raru, but he also has a really good record versus the top 100. He's got a really good record versus the qualifiers. I think T being in the top 20 is fine. I had him as an honorable mention. I just didn't expect him to be this high into the top 20, and I also think if he continues to go to more stuff in the second half of the year, he's going to either maintain this placement or get back into that top 10. He is undeniably incredible at this game, but he just didn't go to a ton of stuff this year, and it's hard to be ranked super high when you're not going to a ton of stuff unless you're just like literally winning every single event. At 15th place, you're going to have Osimo, and Osimo is a player with very high peaks and some pretty low lows. We didn't see too many of them this season, only this 49th really at Delta 8, but everything else is like, oh my lord, is he consistent. 4th, 7th, 3rd, 7th place. Look at the wins. 2 Tama P wins, 2 Hurt wins, 2 Gluto wins, a Zomba win, a Rare win, a Yaro win. Osimo is easily the best FGC player to touch this game right now. I do think that Riddles could steal that title back from him, but it's going to be pretty difficult because I think Osimo is only going to continue getting better, and when he wins his first major, it is going to happen. I'm very confident in that. I think it's going to snowball super hard. In 14th place, you're going to have Zomba, and I mentioned earlier that Shiny Mark is potentially hardest player to rank. Well, if you don't think it's Shiny Mark, then it is absolutely Zomba, because how do you rank this guy? He won Genesis. That's pretty good. He got 2nd place at Patchwork as well, which is incredible. Then he's got solid results like 5th place at Invitational, 5th place at Circus, good at some B tiers. And then the rest of his majors are not bad. 9th at a P tier event is really good. 25th at the biggest event of the year isn't terrible, but it's just kind of tough to gauge where we should put this guy. He won such a massive event, and he got 2nd place at Patchwork, but everything else is just good. Not incredible, not bad, just good. And his wins are also phenomenal. So with 2 wins on Sonos, a win on Sparkle, 5 wins on Syrup, beaten Tweak, beaten Wrath. He beat Shattuck as well, which I don't even know when that happened. Actually, I do know when it happened. It was at Patchwork. Zomba is obviously very, very good at this game. He absolutely could have been in the top 10, but I also think him not being top 10 is a fine decision by the LUMIRANK team, or the LUMIRANK algorithm, rather. At 13th place, you're going to have Yara, and this was higher than I had Yara. I think I had him like 17th on my list, but I also think this 13th place is not unreasonable. Aside from this 33rd at Genesis and this 17th at Delta, he's been pretty good overall. He doesn't have a ton of events, but the events that he's going to, he's getting really solid wins. He's got 3 wins on Snow. He's beaten both Zachary and Zomba, so there you go. He should be ranked above Zomba because transitive property. He's beaten Hurt. He's beaten Doramigi. Just the wins that this guy gets are super, super solid. I think if we saw more of him, he could have honestly squeaked into that top 10, and going into the second half of the year, I think he's going to win his first major. In 12th place, you're going to have Doramigi, who manages to win his first major this year, and he's only 14 years old. Guys, if you haven't won a major yet, give up. It's not happening. The kids these days are too good. He beats Reru there twice, as well as picking up nice wins on Ron and Kudaponzu. He gets 7th place at Umabora, beating Zomba, T, Yara. 5th place at Kulon as well, with a nice Glutiny and Ken win. I think Doramigi is a shoo-in for top 10 going into the second half of the year because he's still very new to the game, but his fundamental aggressive style of play is like so good. The second he hits you off stage, you are literally just going to die. The only thing that he really needs to work on is his defensive play, and that is going to be extremely difficult to do with Min Min as well. That is the flaw of the character, but I have a lot of faith in Doramigi to figure out. He's so young and he's already so talented. Speaking of talent, you have Reru, one of the most consistent players of the season. This is his only bad placement, and he's doing it with Luigi. Mr. Inconsistency wins his first major of the year as well at Sumabato SP47, and then he's got 2nd at a major, 3rd at a major, 2nd at a major, 2nd at a major, 2nd at a P-tier event, 7th place at Delta as well. Look at the wins. He has 5 wins on Snow, 4 wins on Yoshidora, 3 wins on Asimo, 2 wins on Doramigi. There are certain players that are in this top 20 caliber that Reru is just destroying, and it's giving him a huge boost. He's got an 11-19 record versus the top 20, which is honestly pretty remarkable. Now, I don't think Reru is going to go up, unfortunately. I think the only place he's going to go is down, and that's no offense to Reru. I just think the fact that he did this with Luigi is a miracle, and it's going to be impossible to replicate, but if anyone could do it, it would be him. So let's get into the top 10, what we've all been waiting for, everyone's favorite part, and also the part that made everyone very angry. Starting off with Light at 10th, and this is actually like a super reasonable placement. He's got a 14-9 record versus the top 20. Consistent results across these majors, aside from the 17th place at Cirque. He manages to get a major win at Invitational, has 2 wins on Mia, 2 wins on Meister, 2 wins on Tweak, 3 wins on Zomba, and Shattuck. His top wins are just phenomenal. I think Light is only going to go up. This is a player that I just can't imagine not in the top 10 because he's always been in the top 10. Fun fact, Light and Tweak are the 2 only players that have been in the top 10 for every single official ranking of Smash Ultimate, which is incredible. Huge props to them. Light has managed to be ranked 10th 3 times before, so barely squeaks it every time. But hey, to his credit, he manages to get in there. In 9th place, you're going to have Spargo! Okay, so we knew that Spargo wasn't going to have an amazing season because of these 2 events right here. The Japan trip does hurt him, as well as this 5th place. I believe this is Psychic Showdown, but I am not 100% sure. It was a B tier in Mexico, though, where he doesn't do super well. But outside of that, Spargo's had a spectacular season. His worst placement is 5th. He's got literally podium finishes everywhere else. do not be worried if you're a Spargo fan. I am 100% sure that he is going to be in contention for best in the world in the second half of the year. He started off amazingly at Kagadibi, and even this year, all things considered, he's still top 10 in the world. He still has 2 wins on Light and Shattuck, beating players like Osimo, Mudes, Onin, Meister, Yaura as well. He's one of the best the world has to offer. He just had a couple of discrepancies that kept him down this year, or the first half of this year, but I don't think they're going to keep him down forever. And the final thing I'll say about Spargo is I do think that 9th place is still too low for him. I would have him at 7th place. Again, aside from these 2 tournaments, he's pretty much had a perfect season, only podium finishes. But his competition has also been pretty good with Tama P at 8th. And as you can see, the 2 events where Spargo does bad, Tama P does incredible. 4th place at Delta, 5th place at Kagadibi. And look at the wins this guy has. He has a Mia win. He has 2 Snow wins, 2 Gak wins, 2 Rare wins, a Yarrow win, a Zomba win, 4 shoot-down wins. He's absolutely been farming that. And he manages to win his first major of the year. And that's something that I've already talked about a couple times in this video. But I feel like that is just such a massive hurdle to overcome. Just that mental block in your brain. Knowing that you can do it just makes such a difference. He doesn't have a great start to the season, unfortunately, underperforming pretty hard at Coulon 12. So it's going to be hard for him to reclaim this top 8. But to be honest, I really think he can do it. He is unbelievable. By far the best Bayo in the world. In 7th place, you're going to have Shattuck, and I really think it's only a matter of time before Shattuck becomes the best player in America. He got pretty close to it this season, Tweak the only one beating him out, and it wasn't by a very large margin. As you can see, he manages to win 2 major events this year, gets his first major win at Cirque, and follows it up immediately at LSI with like a ton of wins, and that's not even his best run, because he gets 2nd place at Collision with even more crazy wins. He's got 2 wins on Sonics, 2 wins on Light, 2 on Riddles, 2 on Meister, 7 on Mudes. Oh, that's a lot. He's going to win on Mia, Spargo, Yaura, Onin, Gluto. Like, this record versus the top 20, 15, 16, yeah, he has a lot of losses, but he also has a ton of wins there. Overall, he's just been unbelievable. Easily the best foreign player in the world. I do think that Neo has a chance to take that title back, but it's going to be extremely difficult because I think Shattuck is only going to improve. In 6th place, you're going to have Shootone, and I do think that Shattuck should be ranked above Shootone, but I can understand why he isn't, and it's going to be because of these P-tier events. As you can see, Shattuck only goes to 1 P-tier event because, you know, we only had 1, ends up getting 7th place there, but Shootone gets 9th at Genesis, barely misses behind Shattuck, but then 5th at Umabor, 3rd at Delta, 7th at Kagadibi. When it matters the most, Shootone is stepping up massively, and he's having amazing runs at all 3 of these events. Like, his top 3 tournaments are all P-tiers. That is a sign of a good season right there. He's also doing exceptionally well at the A-tier events, picks up a win at Game is Game. He's got wins on players like Zomba, Light, Hurt, Bude, Snow, multiple wins on players like Yaura, Glutony, and Osimo. Shootone at 6 is fine. I just think Shattuck should be a little bit better, but the difference between them is like such a small margin that it doesn't really matter. Moving on to that top 5, and our first player in the top 5 is going to be Tweak, the best player in America for the first half of 2024, and he absolutely deserved it. He's going to start off the year with a massive win at LMBM, beating Sonics twice, Leo, Shattuck, and Tilde, and he's going to end the year by also winning a major in Gommel. Doesn't get as many high-impact wins there, but beats Sonics again, beats Riddles, beats Syrup. He's just been crazy. Winning 2 S+ years when we've only had 3 of them is, like, unreal. He also has a 4th place at Genesis, which is arguably his best run, beating Light, T, Riddles, and Shattuck. His other events are also good. The only discrepancy on Tweak season is going to be that 17th place at Collision, but outside of that, it's been nearly perfect. I do think that Tweak still has what it takes to be the best player in the world. As I've said before, there's not a lot of people who I still consider in that conversation, so it's pretty telling of how highly I think of this guy. In 4th place, you're going to have Hurt, and initially I've disagreed pretty hard that Tweak should be above Hurt, but the more I look at it, the more I agree. Aside from this 49th at Subigeki, which is obviously really bad, he's got 4th, 3rd, first, so he won 3 A tiers this year. He also has a higher peak than Tweak with a 2nd place at a P tier event because of the wins that he got here, with wins on T, Zachary, and 2 wins on Akola. That is half of Akola's losses this season. He got so much points for that, and he also won 3 major events, one of them being Battle of BC, where he beats Spargo twice, one of them being Altcore, where he beats Rare twice. His record versus the top 20 is 17-8, which is like unbelievable, by the way, versus Tweak, which is 8-5. Still very good, not as many encounters, but Hurt has like literally 9 more top 20 wins. I can definitely see why Hurt is above Tweak, and I also think Hurt is someone that is in contention for best in the world. Funnily enough, he was closer to 3rd place than he was to Tweak, even with his 49th at Subigeki. So even though I thought it would be pretty close, Hurt was just better this season. Now, I do want to say, if Tweak went to more events, would he be ranked higher than Hurt? I think so, but we'll never know. In 3rd place, you're going to have Sonics, and I will say, it doesn't feel right that he didn't get 2nd. I feel like he kind of earned it with, you know, the second places that he got, which was literally every event that he went to except for the two smallest one. He picks up a win on literally every single top player in America. At least one, multiple on most of them being Shattuck, Tweak, Light, and Spargo. Sonics is absolutely in contention for best in the world. He's heavily in contention for best in the world, and I think if all the players were at every single tournament, I'm saying Akola shows up, Mia shows up, Sonic shows up, Hurt shows up, Tweak shows up, they all show up every single time, Sonics is going to be the best player in the world in that case scenario. Now, the reason he isn't higher than this is pretty simple. He just didn't win an event, and because he didn't win an event, he takes 2 losses every single event that he's going to. So his record versus the top 20 is only 14-11. Even Hurt has a better record there, and you know Mia and Akola are going to have better records there. So unfortunately for Sonics, getting second place at every event stopped him from being best in the world. Who could have predicted that? In second place, you're going to have Mia, and this was actually the biggest shock of the ranking for me. Not because I don't think Mia is good enough to be second. He's top 3, interchangeable with Sonics and Akola, in my opinion. But it's because I thought if the algorithm put Sonics at third, it would put Akola at second because it's just going to favor someone that has a ton of wins, like Mia does. He's literally the most winningest player of 2024. He has won more majors than Akola has been to events. That is unbelievable. But because he's been to so much stuff, he also has a couple of inconsistencies. He's got the 17th at Genesis. He missed top 8 at multiple Sumabatos. He's got the 7th place at Cirque, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but when you're fighting Akola, who doesn't lose, has only lost 4 sets this year, it does matter a lot more. And obviously, Mia has had an insane season. He is 30-9 versus the top 20. Like, I feel like I really don't have to tell you anything else. He won the most important event of the year and did really well at all of the other ones, getting into the grand finals aside from Genesis. Didn't even go to any of the S Plus tier events. I feel like if Mia did, he actually could have had that number 1 spot. Of course, he would have had to have done well. And Mia is absolutely in contention for being the best in the world going into the second half of 2024. The issue for him is always going to be those inconsistencies. So if he can clean those up, he has the highest peak of the year so far. And our big winner, to no one's surprise, is going to be Akola. He keeps that streak going from 2023. And I do agree that Akola should be the best player in the world, considering he has literally lost 4 sets in 2024. That's less fingers than I have. That is unbelievable. And I know that he hasn't been to a ton of events, but at the events he's going to, he's gotten 3 wins on Mia and Doramigi. He's gotten 2 wins on Osimo, Glutoni, and Shutone, and he's gotten wins on Snow, Tompi, T, Yaura, and Zachary. 15 and 4 record versus the top 20. If we adjust that to the amount of events that Mia went to, he would have a 30-8 record versus the top 20. So that 1 loss from Mia, I don't know who gave it to him, but that was the deciding factor. I'm 1000% sure. Jokes aside, though, Akola has been unbelievably consistent this year. He has no bad losses on his resume, a ton of good wins. And even if he entered more events, I still think that he would have been the best player in the world. I really don't think attendance mattered that much for him. I just think he would have won everything that he went to regardless. And with that, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed the sport. It's been absolutely unreal as of late. I'm very curious to see what y'all thought about this ranking. I know a lot of people weren't happy with it, but the more I look at it, the more I stew on it, I don't think they did that bad of a job. Yes, there is a problem with the ranking season not favoring every region equally, but global rankings are going to be inherently flawed because the talent isn't going to be in the same place. Unfortunately, that is just how it works, but it's only going to get better. I have a lot of faith in the LUMIRANK team. I do think they're genuinely very connected to the community and they're trying to do the best, and I'm curious to see how the next season turns out. But with that, I thank you all for watching. I think I already said that. I'm just going to wrap it up now. I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.